Hi, everybody. Welcome to A Mighty Blaze. I am Jenna Blum, one of the co-founders of The Blaze, and today I'm here to welcome you to Baking with Rach with our guest, Kat Cermelj. Hello, Kat, and she's coming to us all the way from England today to talk about her book and to introduce us to her lemon drizzle cake. So yum, drooling already. And first, before we get started and I hand the mic over to Rach, I would like to say a few words about The Blaze. If you're watching us again, welcome back. If you're new to The Blaze, please know we are a team of 37. Every week this number goes up. Creative professional volunteers dedicated to connecting writers, including cookbook authors, with their readers in the age of COVID, in the age of Delta, in the age of whenever and beyond. So we are in the connection business, bringing good books to you and good recipes and good cakes. If you like what you see here, please give us a like or a follow on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Goodreads. We are ubiquitous. And please consider signing up for our newsletter at www.mightyblaze.com so you will be kept apprised of all of our fantastic events every week. You will never have literary FOMO ever again. No mo FOMO. Nobody likes FOMO. It's very dangerous. And today, we have the great privilege, as always during our baking shows, of being hosted by Rachel Levy-Lesser. Hi, Rach.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Who's broadcasting from her porch today because she has no kitchen, and yet she still managed to make our esteemed guests cake. So we will find out how. Here's who Rach is, for those of you who don't yet know her. Rachel Levy-Lesser is the author of Life's Accessories, a memoir and fashion guide. Her work has appeared in the Huffington Post, Glamour, Parenting, Modern Loss, Kveller, and several anthologies. Rach is the graduate of the University of Pennsylvania and the University of Michigan Business School, and in her previous life, before Blaze tractor beamed her in, as a marketing professional, she worked on the business side of Time Inc. on magazines including InStyle, People, and Real Simple. When she's not writing and blazing, Rach can be found baking, of course. Rach, take it away.
Thank you for that lovely intro, Jenna. Welcome, everybody. We're so happy to have Kat here with us. This is our first guest streaming in from across the pond, I'll say. She's in England. So we had a very in-depth discussion about the time difference over there. 5 hours later, it's 7 p.m. It's 2 p.m. here on the East Coast. From wherever you are, we are baking. I'm on my porch because my kitchen is still under construction. And I can report that I made Kat's cake in a convection microwave oven in my basement, and it turned out amazing. So you can really bake wherever you want. You don't even need a kitchen. So I'm going to read Kat's official bio, and then we are going to start talking to Kat and start baking, and I'm really excited about this episode. So I'm putting on my glasses to read. That's how I roll. So Katarina Cermelj is I shouldn't say she's undertaking. She just completed in December her PhD in inorganic chemistry from Oxford. We're going to talk about that later. After eliminating gluten from her diet, she used her scientific background to experiment with gluten-free baking, and in 2016 set up her hugely popular baking blog, The Loopy Whisk, which you guys should all check out, sharing her sumptuous allergy-friendly recipes. Baked to Perfection is Kat's first book. It was published in the UK in March and in the US just this month. It came out on August 17th. Baked to Perfection begins with a thorough look at the gluten-free basics, how different gluten-free flours behave, which store-bought blends work best, and how to mix your own to suit your needs. Covering cakes, brownies, cookies, pastry, and bread in turn, Kat shares the best techniques for the recipes in each chapter, and each recipe is accompanied by expert tips, useful scientific explanations, and occasional step-by-step photography. Containing 100 easy-to-follow recipes that have been rigorously tested for deliciousness, including triple chocolate cake brownies, caramel apple pie, super moist chocolate cake, cinnamon rolls, as well as loaves of crusty bread and show-stopping patisserie. Baked to Perfection is the gluten-free Bible for every home baker. And I have a copy of this beautiful book right here. Before we went on air, I was telling Kat and Jenna that I just love looking at this book. It is so beautiful. The photography is amazing. And today we're going to make the lemon drizzle cake right here on page 61, which is a beautiful, beautiful cake. So welcome, Kat, after that long intro.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the lovely intro.
Of course, we're so happy you're here. And as I said before, this whole book is filled with gluten-free recipes. So we're going to get started just adding some of the dry ingredients. And as I do that, I just kind of we talked a little about this before offline. Wanted to know about how your interest in gluten-free baking started, and also your interest in science and how that all sort of came together.
Well, I've been interested in baking and science both for a very long time. So my mom is the most amazing cook and baker. So when I was little, I used to have these amazing 3D cakes for my birthday, in the shape of a hedgehog or a cat. And I always used to help out in the kitchen. But at the same time, I always had these also discussions with my dad about the universe and about the atomic structure and whatnot. So I've always been interested in both the science and the baking side of things. And then, so I was kind of between physics and chemistry and the science side of things, but I ended up deciding to study chemistry. So first as an undergraduate at Oxford, and then I stayed on for my PhD. And so just before my PhD started, I had some health issues, which many gluten-free people will be familiar with. That sentence, I had health issues. And I experimented with my diet, and it turned out that so some of my health problems could be solved by eliminating gluten and dairy for a while also from my diet. But that also meant that, I couldn't use the same old recipes that I used to use for all my, cakes and cookies and whatnot. So I started experimenting with gluten-free and free from baking, but all the recipes that I found, online and in cookbooks, I wasn't quite happy with them. They weren't bad, but they weren't on the same level to what I was used to. So I started developing my own. I mean, the first experiments were horrible. My cookies crumbled, my cakes were dry, the bread was like a brick, so it was horrible. But then over time, I kind of started understanding what goes on in the bakes. I started using my science. I started using, making spreadsheets of ingredient ratios and whatnot. And then I had this long stretch between my undergraduate and my PhD studies. And so I had nothing to do. So then I decided to start my blog, and it basically just went from there.
That's amazing. Well, what I like about the book, I mean, so many things, the beautiful photography, but you really talk about the science. And, it's interesting to me. I've been baking for a long time. I also have baked a lot of gluten-free because for a period of time, my daughter and I were gluten-free. We call ourselves gluten light now, related to like stomach stuff. But it's interesting to know the difference in the different flour blends and why you add different things. So to start with, just to keep us on track for this lemon drizzle cake today, we're going to start with our flour blend. So I'm using Bob's Red Mill gluten-free 1-to-1 flour, which I really like. I know there's probably a lot of other brands. I'm not being sponsored by them or anything, but you add 1 2/3 cup of that into your bowl, and then on top of that, you're going to add 3/4 a cup of almond flour. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's your basic start there. Now I noticed in the recipe it says you can also, or you should add a 1/2 teaspoon of the how am I going to pronounce it? The xanthan gum.
Xanthan gum, yeah.
Xanthan gum, but only if your flour blend doesn't contain that, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So if your gluten-free flour blend does contain xanthan gum, you usually don't have to add it separately unless you're making something that requires some extra elasticity, like pastry, or if you're making choux buns or eclairs. So for the choux pastry, you might need to add a bit more extra xanthan gum, because most gluten-free flour blends with xanthan gum already added, those are good for cakes, cookies, etc., not for the high elasticity requirements.
Okay. See, that's so interesting. I never knew that, why some gluten-free recipes called for that. My blend already has it in it, so I'm not going to add that. I'm just going to add the 3 teaspoons of baking powder to this.
Yeah.
So I know, I kind of feel like I'm doing a science experiment.
I mean, to be fair, baking is a science of sorts, just more creative, and you get to eat the end result.
That is true.
That's right. I always wondered about the xanthan gum because I have friends who are gluten-free and tried to bake for them, and I thought that it was for binding, like an egg substitute, because I see it in a lot of recipes that are eggless as well. Is that true? Or did I just make that up?
So I mean, I suppose you could use it for that. I've never seen it used specifically as an egg substitute. It basically acts in gluten-free baking as a gluten replacement. So it acts, as you said, as a binder. It gives some elasticity and prevents crumbliness, basically.
Okay, good to know. I have not yet succeeded in making anything that is gluten-free successful. If the texture is always off, the taste is good, but the texture is off, and it's because I don't yet have your cookbook, which will like educate me scientifically to do this.
You know, I not to give gluten-free or any kind of allergy recipe a bad name, but I sometimes feel like when you tell people in advance it's gluten-free, they're like, oh, you know. So my thing is I just don't tell people. And I made this gluten-free cake and I served it to my family and they were like, it's amazing. They didn't even ask if it was gluten-free or not. I told them afterwards. The same thing happened with the gluten-free pie crust I made from Joanna Rakoff because she's gluten-free too.
Right.
So, and I saw earlier Julie Gerstenblatt, who's one of our producers, already bought the book, and her daughter is gluten-free. So
Yeah.
it's definitely catching on.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, no, so what I've had several of my readers and followers tell me was that they made, because they're gluten-free or dairy-free or vegan or whatever, they made one of my recipes. And what ended up happening was that they had to fight for a piece of the cake or a cookie because their non-gluten-free and non-vegan family and friends wanted just to eat everything. Which, it's just the best thing to hear that, non-gluten-free people or non-vegan people love those allergy-friendly recipes because that's just the ultimate compliment.
And I feel like today, in the year 2021, it's so easy to purchase so many gluten-free products. Yeah. I mean, you go to the market and there's a whole aisle of so many different options. So it took me a while to figure out like the brands that I liked and that kind of stuff. But once you have that down pat, it's like sometimes I don't even buy the regular stuff. So speaking of the basic stuff, we're going to add to this a cup of sugar and a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
So we're moving along.
Awesome. And Kat, do you have a particular kind of flour that you prefer? You're in England, so are you using different brands than what we might use in the States? We have Bob's Red Mill is like a very popular brand, but is there stuff that you like in particular that you would advise we import?
I mean, so there's a brand that I usually use that's a UK brand. So it's called Dove's Farm and has this Dove's Farm free plain gluten-free flour. I know it's not available in the US, but many people have made my recipes that are in the US and they've used Bob's Red Mill flour with great success. So I know it works. I haven't tested it myself yet. But also in the book, I have 2 options for different gluten-free flour blends that people can mix themselves. Because some people do prefer to mix everything themselves, get the individual gluten-free flours. So both options are available.
Nice. I know I make a German bread sometimes also that's not gluten-free, but it has to be with this particular kind of flour that I order from Germany. Like, thank God for Amazon and all things. It's einkorn flour, but it does really make a difference, right? I mean, the different flours contribute to different textures and different tastes.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's the same, even in gluten baking, if you use, spelt or rye, or as I say, einkorn, all of these flours have such a huge effect. And with gluten-free baking, when you have even a larger range of flours to choose from, that's even more obvious.
I bet.
We added the almond flour to this, but I mean, when I go to the market now, I notice so many different flours. There's rice flour, almond. It's a little bit overwhelming sometimes, right? How many choices there are.
Oh yeah, no, I guess if you're new to gluten-free baking, I would just select a few flours, try them out, see if you like them, and then I often list I list in my book substitutions. So I group flours into different groups, and within the group you can make substitutions. So for instance, I know that many of my recipes use buckwheat flour, but what people, especially in the US, have been noticing that if you use Bob's Red Mill buckwheat flour, it gives your bakes quite a dark color and quite a strong aftertaste. So in that case, either you can search for a different brand or swap to a different flour like sorghum or white teff. So there are all these substitutions available. So if you can't find a specific type of flour or if you don't like it, there's plenty of other options.
Nice. Okay. That's good to know. So we're at a key stage here where we're going to start to use our Or Jen's like paying attention. What's the key?
I'm like, what's happening?
I normally use this is also a factor of not having a kitchen. I normally use my KitchenAid stand mixer, but I don't even actually know where it is right now. It's in a box somewhere. So I'm using the handheld, which I love, by the way, the handheld mixer. So there's definitely nothing wrong with that. And we're going to use that to add our 2 sticks of softened butter. Always key to, I took these out a while ago with the butter to have it, to take it out of the fridge a good chunk of time beforehand. Yeah.
To be fair, I usually forget, which is a very bad thing to do. But what I usually do is just pop it for a few seconds in the microwave and leave it in the microwave for another 10 seconds, and it usually softens it pretty evenly. And if you have any, softer points and more firm points, when you mix it up, it all gets mixed together anyway. If you remember, don't do as I do. It's better to leave it out at room temperature. But I've been doing this. I usually forget in like 90% of the time. So it hasn't failed me yet. So if you forget, that's a great way to do it.
It's good to know that. I wasn't going to admit that, but I forget all the time. So I pop it in the microwave for 10 seconds, but luckily I remembered. So this might be a little loud, but I'm just going to blend this together. And in your instructions, you say to blend it together until it resembles a texture similar to like coarse breadcrumbs. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Excuse the noise here. Does not take very long.
We're used to it. We can handle it, Rach. You do the thing. Do it. Good. You can have one really strong like mixer arm, right? My grandmother had like, her mixer.
Or if you do whisking by hand, and it's always because I like to do my whisking by hand oftentimes. Yeah, and then it's always the one hand that does all the work.
Yes, it is. And then how long do you whisk if you whisk by hand? You must have one really strong arm also. You have like a whisk arm.
No, it's not. So what I usually do, if I do it by hand, if I do, creaming, for instance, butter and sugar by hand, perfect. So what I usually do is just pop the butter into the microwave for a few extra seconds so it's softer, because it's much easier to whisk the butter and sugar than together, so you don't have as much resistance as you would otherwise.
Now you tell me. Okay.
Yeah. By the way, that handheld, while it's lovely and wonderful, it makes a lot more noise than the stand mixer. Sorry about that distraction. Somebody was just logging on. They were probably like, "What's happening?"
It's a baking show. People can figure it out.
Yes. So I feel like this is a good texture, right, Kat?
Yeah.
Okay.
So long as your butter and flour are fairly evenly incorporated, you're good.
Yeah, they're good. It's nice. It's like a nice hearty blend here, I would say, for sure. The almond flour adds to that for sure.
Oh my God. So this is the stage in which I would eat the stuff out of the bowl just to test and make sure it was all evenly distributed. Do you ever do this, Kat? I've been scolded on this show for admitting that. So I like to collect answers from our bakers, from our guest chefs.
I try not to, because you hear all the horror stories, but especially at the end, or especially if it's a new recipe and I've added spice to it or something like cinnamon, I do sometimes just take a bit of the batter at the end just to test the sweetness and the spice level and everything. Technically you shouldn't. It's not advised because raw eggs and untreated flour and everything. But I think everybody does it.
Yeah. I'm not like eating big spoons, but when I was a little kid, my mom would let me lick off the wooden spoon if she made like her blueberry muffin from a mix kind of thing. And so I got used to that. I have survived. I'm a little weird, but I've survived. So
I've licked a ton of spoons. If I have, it's funny. I was just thinking, lick the spoon. That could be the name of another blog. I was wondering how you got the name for the Loopy Whisk, your blog.
First of all, it took a while to choose. I don't know why titles are so hard. I swear.
Titles are so hard.
Yes. So the title of the book, I swear choosing that was harder than writing the actual book. I don't know why titles are horrible. But anyway, so I wanted something that doesn't restrict me to just a certain type of baking or cooking. So I didn't want to say, I don't know, Kat's Gluten-Free Kitchen or something like that, because I want to keep my options open, for vegan baking or regular baking or whatever I chose to do. And I wanted something quirky that stays in people's minds. So I was thinking, what utensils do I often use? So it was kind of between a spatula and a whisk. And something offbeat as well. I always liked plays on words, and I like the fact that loopy is literally loopy as well as slightly loopy. Exactly.
We love
And
it.
yeah, and it's just quirky, offbeat. People tend to ask about the names, and I hope it stays in their minds.
It does. I have not forgotten about it, and I love following it. It's a great follow on Instagram, by the way. Whenever it pops up, I'm always like drooling over the beautiful recipes and pictures. It's so
That's brilliant.
And all these recipes are online, so you can find them there, including this recipe, which I know we linked earlier. Oh yeah, Pinterest too. Pinterest, the page is amazing. It's very, very popular.
Kat, don't you have like a jillion followers on your Instagram and Pinterest? Can you talk to us about, I mean, as somebody who spends most of her waking life trying to figure out how to entice more people over to the Blaze, like how did this get started and do you maintain it? How does this all work?
Yes, so I mean, all the social media, everything written on the blog, all the photos, that's all basically just me. My dad's a graphic designer, so he helps me with the technical stuff behind the scenes. But yeah, all the captions, all the photos, that's all, taken by me, written by me. And I mean, I don't think there's a huge secret behind it. I think I was partly lucky that for instance on Instagram a few large accounts shared me at a good point, but otherwise I don't know, I just continue sharing what I hope are mouth-watering photos of food, and talking about the recipes in my captions, helping people, sharing tips on stories, and I don't know, people just come, more and more people are coming to follow on the account, which is great. But I don't have any secrets or special tips. I think just engaging with people, helping them out if they have questions, sharing pictures they like to look at. I think that, yeah.
Well, the pictures are beautiful, and it's so, I mean, I felt like myself getting sucked in there because I would see the pictures, and then I would go to the recipe, then I would look up the recipe, then I would, so yeah, it's all good. Speaking of the recipe, I feel like we should get back to it. We have everything here in the bowl. This is where we add the zest of 3 lemons. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I actually zested ahead of time just because that was a little bit involved.
Great, you fancy. You're so fancy.
I pre-zested without a kitchen. Yeah. So do you have any tips on like proper ways to zest a lemon? I'm just curious. What tools are you using? Yeah.
I usually, so I know people have those fancy microplane zesters. I use just a very sharp grater. I mean, that's what my mom usually used. So it's either a box grater or, just a normal grater for like Parmesan cheese. I know that the microplanes one are amazing. I always say I want to get one. I haven't gotten to that yet.
I actually have a microplane. My friend, who's an excellent cook, who teaches cooking, and we cook together. We make meals to hand out to people. We've done a lot during COVID. She gave me this as a present. So I was so happy to have it on hand. Thank you, Jane. Shout out. So I pre-zested, and I'm just gonna put it, but this does work really well, but you could probably use a lot of different tools to do this.
I mean, so long as it's sharp and gives you, small pieces of lemon zest and doesn't, take all the bitter pith, you're good to go.
And for the zest, I don't know if a lot of people know this. It's really it's the bright yellow part of the peel, I guess. Yeah. The skin. Yeah. So I'm gonna put that in here.
Yeah, and also it smells so good. And also if possible, it's good to use. So I usually go for the organic bio lemons that haven't been waxed, simply because if you're just juicing, it doesn't matter that much. But if you're putting actual zest inside, they treat if they're not organic and if they're waxed, they're treated with all sorts of pesticides, which I know you're not consuming a lot, so it might not be super bad for you, but it also affects the taste. So, if you by accident, so if you try a bit of lemon zest from an unwaxed organic lemon, it tastes slightly bitter, but it's still a nice flavor. If it's been waxed and treated with pesticides, you can feel the flavor difference, and it's not pleasant.
That's good to know. I bought organic lemons, so try to go to the organic part of the market there. So the next, we have a separate bowl where we add, I'll call them our wet ingredients. I already put a half a cup of milk in there. So very basic. You're half a cup of milk, and then it is 6 tablespoons of lemon juice. The recipe calls for freshly squeezed. I'm cheating. Sorry. And interesting enough, I will say this, I did a little research into it. The recipe also calls for a teaspoon of vanilla bean paste. Quite flavorful, I think, which I didn't happen to have. So I'm going to do 2 teaspoons of just vanilla. Yeah. And so we kind of, we go with the flow here. But so is the vanilla bean paste a lot more flavorful?
So I find that it does give more flavor. So if our recipe calls for 1 teaspoon, and if you're using vanilla extract, I usually go for, as you did, for 2 teaspoons. So just double the amount. But yeah, no, I mean, vanilla bean paste is especially lovely if you're making something that's quite light, so like a vanilla sponge, or if you're making, pastry cream or a vanilla buttercream, because then you can also see those little specks of black from the vanilla, which always gives it, a visual appeal.
Yeah. Okay. No, that was good. That was good to know. I didn't know if that was like more specific to the gluten-free, but
that's just general.
Yeah, I wasn't able to get it, and we talk about this a lot on the show about ingredients. Some ingredients are more easily found than others, and it's always okay, we think, to substitute and
definitely
use what you have in your pantry, right?
I mean, if it's a choice between making a substitution or not making the recipe, definitely make the substitution. It will still be delicious, especially if it's a tiny change, like between vanilla bean paste and vanilla extract. The main flavor here especially is the lemon, so it won't make that huge of a difference.
It smells so good here we need like a smell cam.
Yeah, we do need we need like hologram and smell cam. Kat, where do you get your vanilla bean paste? Do you order it online or do you get it at the market?
No, I mean, just in any grocery store here, you can get it's the Nissan Macy vanilla bean paste. You can get it pretty much anywhere here in the UK. Okay. I'm not sure how it is in the US, whether it's more difficult to find. I'm not sure.
I actually think they have it at Trader Joe's. I saw it there.
They have everything at Trader Joe's.
And not to be an ad for Trader Joe's, but I actually also find that the gluten-free flour, the Trader Joe's brand, is really good. And so is the almond flour at Trader Joe's. I love Trader Joe's. So.
Yeah, it is a good place. It's like the IKEA of food, I feel like. Right? It's like inexpensive with creative options. And Kat, did you have this thing that we had in the States at the beginning of COVID where we could not find yeast anywhere?
Yes.
Oh
yes.
my gosh, what was that? I had people in the middle of the country here sending me yeast every time they found packets of yeast. I was like, please send it to me, because I bake my own bread. And it was so hard to find. What was that all about? Did you guys have a baking craze?
I think everybody was just started baking bread, and then when the yeast was gone, everybody started baking sourdough, which, I mean, it's great, but at the same time, I was trying to develop recipes for like gluten-free bread, and I was like, I need my yeast.
Yeah.
We tried ordering it online, but everybody increased the prices. It was like buying gold. I mean, probably gold would have been cheaper than yeast during that time.
Yeah. Were you writing the book and baking at home during the pandemic? Like, what was the timing of the production of the book?
So I was definitely finalizing the book when the pandemic started. So I was at home anyway for a lot of that period, because I was also writing my thesis and working on the book at the same time. So it was just more, focused at home.
That's it. Just writing.
As one does.
As one does.
Chemistry at Oxford, like the rest of us.
I mean, there wasn't a lot of sleep going on during that time. But yeah, no, so I was mostly at home, which, as I'm now also focused on the blog and just recipe development and work from home, it doesn't feel that big of a change, because I was at home anyway, even before the pandemic started. So plus I'm an introvert, so it's not, for me, not being out and about every day, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, we get that, I think. So
we do. The writer lifestyle, when the pandemic started, I kept saying to people, welcome to my life now. You all dress like writers, like terrible outfits, right? Slogging around. Yep.
I'm actually wearing hard pants today, jeans.
What?
I know.
Why are you wearing hard pants?
I don't know why I put them on. I have to take them off after the show. It's too uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, during the baking show, you need an elastic waistband, honey.
I know. So also to this mix, this is the last thing we're going to add before we blend them together, is 4 eggs. At room temperature, right, Kat?
Yeah. I mean, for eggs, same as butter, if you forget to take them out of the fridge, what I usually do is just place them in a bowl of very warm water for like 10 to 15
Oh, so
minutes.
smart.
That's
And
so good.
yeah, it brings them to room temperature in no time. I mean, I'm just very lazy and never to remember to take my ingredients out. So also like with milk, never room temperature, just into the microwave for like 5 to 10 seconds. It's just shortcuts.
Oh, right. The milk was at
So
room
smart.
temperature too.
Yeah.
That mine was. We get the best baking tips here. I love this.
We do. I was just thinking we're getting amazing pro tips. Can I tell you guys about a total fail that I had while you're stirring, Rach? Or do you need to
It smells amazing, by the way. It's like vanilla, the milk, lemon juice. We were talking about this before. Jenna and I are not chocolate people. We're more vanilla people. So
give me the bowl. Give me the bowl.
Pat thinks that's crazy.
Give me the bowl. Yeah, Kat is a chocolate person. Rach and I are the caramel, vanilla, salt people, right? That looks so good. Stop that. It's like baked corn. Stop it. Stop it.
I mean, I'm all for equal opportunity when it comes to desserts, but I have a special place in my heart for chocolate. It's a magical ingredient.
Most people do. Yeah. Sorry, what were you going to say about a baking fail, Jenna?
Oh, so this is my lazy baker thing about forgetting to take the butter out of the fridge. So I took the butter out and it was hard as rock. I see you, Rach. I see the beautiful batter pouring. Thank you. And I put the butter in the microwave, but then I forgot that I'd put the butter in the microwave as well. And so it was like a soup. I mean, it was just totally melted. And I thought, well, it's still butter. So I incorporated it into this maple bacon shortbread that I was making. And of course, what happened was it emulsified the flour and just turned into this flour soup bacon swamp thing that I was like, I'll just put that in the oven anyway. So my advice is don't do that. Like,
that could do
that. Like, that for 10 seconds.
That's what you should name your baking blog. It's still butter.
Or don't ever do that. That's what we called it. It was called "Don't Do What I Do Ever." Baking fail is pretty much what my blog was.
So to be fair, you'd still learn something from that.
You do, and the dog got to eat most of the butter soup.
That's good. I will say, as we're doing this recipe, and I don't know if people are finding this at home, we're going to combine these two together. So I'm going to put this in here and mix it. I mean, like a lot of the recipes in your book, nothing is super duper complicated, right? It's not that intimidating at all.
I mean, I hope not. I don't believe in unnecessarily complicating recipes. If I can, I will simplify it. But that said, my recipes are ridiculously long in the sense that I will write out, a paragraph about mixing if there's a texture change or consistency change. I think recipes shouldn't be short just so they look nice and simple. I like to give as much information as possible just so you know what things should look like at every single stage.
Right. Now,
yes, we appreciate that.
I have a question. When I'm mixing this together, do you think I should put it on the handheld for a minute to really incorporate it?
I usually do use a mixer just to get it ultra smooth.
Okay, I'm going to do that right now. So it's going to be loud for a few seconds. This looks so good.
We love that Rach is baking on her porch today, by the way, people. Rach's kitchen is under construction, and yet she is still doing the baking show, which I think is just a remarkable, just a heroic thing to do. So when is your kitchen going to be ready, Rach? When are you going to be baking?
I know. The guys aren't here today working. I'm like, you guys, I run a baking show. Can we get on that? It'll be done in the next few weeks. So the next baking show, I'll plug it right now, is September 24th. It's actually a Friday, special time. Wait, I'm just going to grab this. Speaking of yeast, I'm interviewing Dr. Beth Riccinati, who wrote a book called Braided. It's a memoir about her journey baking challah every Friday afternoon, and how that became sort of like a wellness program in her life and many other people's lives in LA. And so that is going to be on a Friday at noon Eastern time. So I will be in the kitchen. Tune in to see me in the kitchen, and that's exciting. But for now, we're making lemon drizzle cake on my porch using a convection microwave oven in my basement. We can do it, right?
I super love that. I used to have a oh God, what was it, like the easy bake microwave oven when I was a little girl that, you would bake your recipes with a 40-watt light bulb, which is like nothing, Cat. It's just like this really weak little bulb in this clay oven. But I would bake things, and they always turned out a bit sandy and peculiar, like this mix, not like what Rach is making. Were you baking when you were a child as well? You said your mom was an incredible baker. Did you like grow up in the kitchen doing all the things with her, just alongside her?
I mean, I would like to say I helped a lot. I was mostly just licking all the bowls. But I mean, I was always, surrounded by food. We had this also huge garden, so I also saw how all the food was actually produced, or the fruit and veg. But so I hopefully absorbed some of the knowledge. But I mean, my mom's style of baking and my style of baking are very different, because I'm follow a recipe, weigh everything to the gram, whereas she's like, let's just spontaneously throw things together, and she still gets the most amazing things in the end, which I find absolutely incredible. She eyeballs everything, which I find incredible. I just don't understand how you can get an amazing cake by just eyeballing everything.
That's what Joyce Maynard did a couple weeks ago when I had her, the novelist Joyce Maynard. She made her pie and there were no measuring cups. And I was like, wait, what? What's happening?
That's really unusual. I think for cooking, I can get away with sort of spontaneity, but baking, I tend to eyeball with baking, but then that's why the recipes turn out a little different every time. So you can't, as a scientist, this must make your head explode. Like, what?
Yeah, so the worst part is that sometimes, she pulls off this amazing dessert that has the most amazing flavor. And then I go, well, it would be great, if I knew how you made it. So, what were the ingredients, approximately how much to use? And she's like, I have no idea. And so amazing desserts have been lost that way.
Oh, that is tragic. Okay, no more eyeballing, people. If you're gonna eyeball, like at least try to write down the, eyeball-ish measurements for what you're eyeballing. Rach, we have audience questions. May we start popping up?
Yes, as you pop up the audience questions, I'm gonna put the kind of the final step before we get to the icing. I'm putting the dough here, the mix into a loaf pan, which we're using with parchment paper, which is brilliant because it comes out beautifully. So I'm going to do that. Just pour it right in here while you guys take the audience questions.
Okay. So here's our first question, which is, what has been the hardest food or recipe to convert into gluten-free? That is a great question.
So I let me put two-part answer. One is that I haven't succeeded yet, and that are gluten-free croissants. I've been working on them for the last 2 years and no success so far. I get the flakiness. I don't get the nice, like, open the honeycomb structure. It's remaining elusive. The other one that I, for the longest time, thought it would be impossible is gluten-free phyllo pastry. So, the pastry that you use for spanakopita or baklava and stuff like that, which I actually did succeed in perfecting just a few weeks ago. So that was the other hard one that I actually managed to pull off. So, croissants will happen eventually. I just might need, 10 more years.
I would think that would be, the croissants are hard to do anyway. I took a baking class once and they were making croissants next door, and it was noisy because they were slapping the dough against the counter. Like, you have to slam croissant dough against the counter. Who knew it was so violent? I think that's to get to work the gluten through the ingredients, right? So if you don't have that.
Yeah, no, it's very
tricky. Croissant. I don't even know if I have. I
don't know either. Is it the what is the honeycomb structure? Is that the honeycomb, like the flour? Like what do you mean by that?
No, so when, for instance, on Instagram, you see these perfect croissants, and when you look at their cross section, they have this open, also almost honeycomb-like structure, just the cross section of the croissant. So that's what I mean. So I get the flakiness, but not the open, holy structure of the croissant.
Yeah. Yes, that's so interesting. Thank you. I love hearing about that way. Oh my gosh, Rach, that looks amazing.
Does this look so good?
Yes, it really does. Yes.
I love the parchment paper in the loaf pan. I've made brownies before with parchment paper in it, and I normally think of parchment paper more for, some people call it baking paper, for cookies, for sheet things. But when you actually put it in something like loaf pan, a brownie pan, something like that. It just makes your life so much easier for when you take it out. So
yeah, no, I always line my pans almost regardless of what I'm making, even, for layer cakes when you're making sponges, or as you say, brownies, just always line them, because getting a stuck cake cake stuck inside the tin is just the worst.
I've done that a lot.
That totally makes sense. So we have another question from Anissa, who's one of our most loyal Blazers. Hi, Anissa. We're always so happy to see you. The party is now in the house. And also, I think we all have a little bit of schadenfreude as bakers, because we've had so many fails, like my butter soup shortbread. What has been your most epic fail? Anissa wants to know.
I mean, my initial gluten-free bread experiments were horrendous. I mean, imagine a loaf of bread that's simultaneously dense like a brick, but also strangely gummy and sticky. So it was just, I would cut into it. On the outside, it looked kind of okayish, and then I would cut inside, and it would be this dense thing that got stuck all over the bread knife. It was just horrendous. But also, so just a few weeks ago, when we had a huge heat wave in the UK, I was making a recipe that I thought would go onto the blog, and I very stupidly was making a Black Forest gâteau cake in 30 degrees Celsius heat, which I don't know, maybe 80s or 90s in Fahrenheit. I don't know the conversion, but everything basically just collapsed. So collapsing cakes are another one.
Yeah, temperature can definitely affect the whole process for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to show you guys, like magic on this show, is the loaf cake that I made earlier in my convection bake.
Wow. In your easy bake oven in the basement.
In my easy bake oven.
That's so cute.
I'm sorry if this is like not what was meant to be done with this, but I got to tell you, I did it on convection bake. I converted, from the Celsius to the Fahrenheit. I think it was 350. There was a lot of converting. I felt like I was back in school. 355, and it turned out beautifully. So here it is. And the last step is that we're going to make the icing that we drizzle on, right? Which just, I have to say, you could even eat this without the icing, but but the icing just makes the whole thing.
It's the icing on the cake.
You can.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
The icing on the cake. Haha.
The icing on the cake. I'll be here all day. I'll be
all
night.
Right. So that's another blog title, The Icing on the Cake.
Actually, I will take that one. Yes, that sounds good.
So we use 6 tablespoons of convection sugar, and we're just gonna, a cup of convection sugar, which I have in here, and we're gonna add to that the 6 tablespoons of the lemon juice. Is that right? And in your book, you can say that you could do more or less.
I'm pretty sure it's teaspoons, not tablespoons.
Okay, thank you for telling
Unless I remembered something incorrectly, but I'm pretty sure it's teaspoons. I think tablespoons would make it. It is teaspoons. Okay.
You wrote the book, so you know what's going on. Let me get my teaspoon. Hang on. Oh, here it is.
The icing seems like you might be able to eat the icing because there's no egg in it. So in case you wanted to, stick your finger in the bowl, maybe scoop out some fingerfuls of icing, that would be okay, right?
I mean, it really is. It is more like a glaze, isn't it?
It is more of a glaze. But I mean, so the good thing is that at the same time, it's kind of wet enough to slightly go into the cake and make it more moist, but the majority of it stays on top, and it dries into this crackly. So when you cut into it, it crackles, which I find really nice, and then just melts in your mouth. So, I mean, you could omit it, but at the same time, why would you want to?
And you definitely, because of how it sets on the cake, you don't want to drizzle it on the cake right after it's out of the oven, right? Because it'll melt.
No. Yeah, exactly.
So good.
Usually, so if you want your icing or your drizzle to stay, on top of the cake, and maybe drip down the sides to make it real pretty, always drizzle cold icing onto a cold cake. If you want it to drench into the cake, so actually soak in, then you would have, the combination of either warm cake, cold soak, let's say, or syrup, or hot syrup, cold cake, because then it just absorbs better.
Mm-hmm. You could do both, I suppose, right? Like you could drench the cake in icing and then also drizzle a little bit on top just to make it extra picturesque. I am so hungry right now. I know. That sounds really good to me. Like I need a drenched cake with also some drizzle, but Do you ever do that? Do you ever soak it and then also drizzle on the top?
I'm spreading it on right now on top of my my cake. I'm not drizzling so much. I'm just kind of spreading it on because that's what I put there. Yeah.
So I've never made both, especially not for this cake because it's plenty moist on its own. But if you make, a recipe that doesn't have this amount of, lemon juice and milk and everything, so if it's a bit on the drier side, you can definitely do the soak, let it soak even overnight, and then next day do also the icing on top. You can definitely do that.
Oh my gosh, that sounds delicious. I never thought of the overnight soak. Okay, so we have another question that I totally love for you, Kat. Have there been any instances where you've learned you've really transformed someone's life with these recipes? I love that question.
That's a great question.
I would say, I get the most amazing messages and emails pretty much now on a weekly basis because I think everybody loves to bake, but when it comes to, gluten-free or vegan or egg-free recipes, those are, it's on a different level simply because some, like for instance, gluten-free bread, I've had people tell me that they've, because of my recipes, they had bread for the first time in 40 years, which is the most amazing thing to hear. Or for instance, that they are, of Mexican descent and they love tacos, love burritos, but they couldn't have them because the flour tortillas is usually made with wheat flour. And just a few weeks ago, I published a gluten-free flour tortilla recipe and just got so many messages about, finally being able to again enjoy burritos and tacos, and just the best feeling.
Oh, I love that you're giving people's lives back to them with their heritage, because food is so much part of family.
Yeah.
Well, I will be sending this book to several of my gluten-free friends because I know they can appreciate it. In fact, I'm giving this cake, the one that's already done, to one of my friends here. I'm not going to say who it is, for gluten-free, but I know with gluten-free friends. Are you gluten-free, Jen? Yeah.
I am now.
Gluten-free people I know, I've been out to lunch with friends where they have the most amazing sandwich on a gluten-free bread. They're like, I didn't think I could have this. So it's such a great feeling, I'm sure. Yeah. So this recipe was not, obviously, it was gluten-free, but it was not dairy-free. But there are other recipes that are dairy-free and things like that, right?
Yeah, and especially so egg-free, transforming a regular or even a gluten-free recipe into egg-free is quite tricky. But dairy-free, so I know that most of my recipes in the book that are only gluten-free and do contain dairy, you could easily transform them into dairy-free as well by using dairy-free butter alternatives, dairy-free milk, etc. So the results will be fairly similar. Your bakes might not caramelize as much in the oven because you don't have all the protein and milk solids that brown, but otherwise it should be a fairly reliable substitution to make.
Yeah, there's so many milk substitutes. I mean, oat milk.
Oh yeah, plenty.
Yeah, we have so many in my refrigerator.
Yeah, I don't actually drink milk. I drink oat milk or soy, or flax is good. Kat, how did you develop your interest in your skills in photography? Your photos are amazing.
Oh, thank you.
First of all, the cover is the best.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, this isn't just like a point and click thing. Like, this is some level up photography. Have you been doing this also since you were a kid?
No, I really only started a year or two into blogging. So initially with on the blog, I used to just use a smartphone, but my dad's a graphic designer and photographer. So he always had DSLR cameras around. So I was surrounded by this, but at first it just seemed intimidating to start using a professional camera. But I just started experimenting. My dad gave me loads of advice, and I looked at the photos that I liked of people I admire, other photographers, other food bloggers, and just tried to pick out the elements that I liked and wanted to incorporate to my photography, and learned how to use strobes and flashlights and how to use the manual setting on the camera. So it just evolved over the years, but I only started actually doing the photography with an actual camera just maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Oh my gosh, that's phenomenal. And food is hard to shoot. I know a Nikon photographer really well who's a nature photographer. And he said food is the hardest thing to shoot. It's actually harder than people to shoot and make it look appealing. So you've taught yourself in this amazing way.
Thank you. Yeah, it took a while.
Speaking of the book, actually, and I think we noted this on the feed earlier, but Kat's publisher was kind enough to offer a copy of the book as a giveaway to one lucky live viewer today. The rules for winning the giveaways: you have to live in the US and also comment or ask a question live. So we're going to have our producer behind the scenes, Trisha, pick a winner, and we'll post that information in a little bit. So whoever is the lucky winner, you're going to love this book. Thank you so much for doing that to Kat and to her publisher. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. We love the giveaways. And we have only time for a couple
Wait,
more.
we have a winner, by the way, Doreen.
Doreen. Oh, that's great.
Congratulations, Doreen.
Hi.
Doreen, you're going to love this. You're going to bake so many things at home, and we will make sure we get that book to you. I will talk to Kat's publicist about that. So
awesome. Yeah. So Doreen, in order to get your book, my name is Doreen now also, and I'm gluten-free. Just but you should throw an elbow, knock me off the stage, and then write to the Blaze at amightyblaze@gmail.com, or you can contact us on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, direct message, and we will happily get this book to you. So
Doreen will find us to get this book for sure.
Yes, or Jenna Doreen will. That could happen.
Thank you so much. That was really generous of you to be able to do that. Are you thinking about doing another cookbook, or what's next? I mean, I know you just finished your PhD, started a blog with, as we said, very scientifically, a jillion followers, and are promoting this book both in the US and the UK. So what else do you have? What else are you working on?
So currently I'm just focusing on the blog. I have many new recipes coming every week, but I'm definitely playing around with some ideas for a new cookbook. So fingers crossed, nothing confirmed yet, still, brainstorming new ideas, but hopefully in the future, yes.
That's amazing. Fingers and toes for sure.
Yeah, all of them. Okay.
Yeah. Are all the recipes that are in the book, a lot of them can be found on the blog, right?
No, actually, so only about 10 recipes.
Oh, okay.
10 or so, but even those, the majority of those that are in the book have been improved in some sort, even if they're on the blog. So it could be a different technique, for instance, for rolling a Swiss roll, or, an ingredient has been optimized. So the majority of the book is completely new recipes.
So buy the book, guys, buy the book. You can get it on a lot of different channels, on bookshop.org too, where Mighty Blaze has a stall there, and so we love to support them, and we love to support you, and we're so thrilled that you had this cookbook come out. How's the tour been going, both the US and the UK, and all your virtual events and all that kind of stuff?
It's been amazing. I mean, I'm not very confident in front of the camera, so I was slightly hesitant about how it would go, but I've been loving it. People have been amazing. I've had just the most brilliant time and answered so many different questions. It's just been amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. We're so happy you were able to join us. Do we have any more audience questions, Jenna, do we think, or?
I think that was the question was about Kat's plans going forward. So that's mostly what we want to know. We want to keep stalking you on Instagram, stalking you on Pinterest, reading the blog.
Definitely give it a follow at the Loopy Whisk. It's so great. It's addictive.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's very soothing. Like, I like to look at sort of like food blogs right before I go to sleep, instead of looking at politics or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And I sleep much better when I'm looking at Loopy Whisk photos before bed. So thank you for that. Wake up hungry, of course, but that's a casualty. So Rach, is that done? Is that beautiful?
It's complete. So I would say the loaf I kept in the pan, so I didn't drizzle all around. I just kind of did it on top. So it's more of an icing, but maybe for the other one, after it comes out of my Easy Bake Oven in my basement, I will drizzle it more completely. So it looks beautiful. I can't wait to dig in. I can't wait to share it with friends. And everyone knows the days that I'm doing the baking show, because they like line up at my front door. So yeah, it's all good. I just thank you so much for spending time with us. We so appreciated it.
No, thank you for having me. I had a great time.
Thank you. This has just been a pure joy. And even if you like chocolate, that's fine. We
love you
to host you, and respect for like bringing science to baking, and especially like being a woman in science. We greatly support this, and to put it to use, making delicious things. Like, what could be better?
Nothing.
I mean, baking and science, it's just the best combination.
We would agree. And I already told you guys about what's coming up next time earlier, about the challah baking on Friday, September 24th. in the new kitchen, fingers crossed. So we will see you then, and definitely be sure to give Kat a follow, buy her book, and check out the Blaze this week too with all of our upcoming events. We've got some good stuff coming up. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.